Continuing on, item number 27, last item on our agenda. Councilmember Cassar, you want to make a motion?
Yes, Mayor, I'll make a base motion as I handed out in orange, except I'm not going to move my amendment number 4, which is the cooperatives amendment, because I think Councilmember Poole actually has that one written in a way that works better. So I'm moving as the base everything in this sheet. Once I have a second, I'm happy to either explain it or take testimony or do it in whichever order you like.
Okay, so you're moving the orange sheet with the exception of item number 4.
Correct.
Is that correct? It's been a motion. Is there a second to this motion?
And item number 4 is coming down the dais right now.
In a second. Mayor Pro Tem seconds this. We have a motion and a second. Councilor Cassar, you can lead off.
I will just lay out the changes as they were posted to the message board today, and any changes from, there's some small changes from yesterday to just get us closer to where we want to go. So the first amendment is to make sure we incorporate Planning Commission's recommendations to waive minimum site area. A big chunk of the ordinance can then be struck because that was trying to define minimum site area in different ways. And if we're taking Planning Commission's recommendation of just waiving minimum site area for those bigger developments, then we can strike that section. Number 2 is what I had described also during work session, which is Planning Commission recommended that there be screening and design requirements in these in SF5 or more restrictive districts. And I have accepted that. However, there was a concern that what if somebody's building affordable housing in an SF5 district but builds SF3 scale housing? Should they have to comply with design and screening requirements that are for SF5? And so we went in there to really clarify the intent and say that if the height of the development exceeds 3 stories, then those screening and design standards that Planning Commission recommended should be put in place. And I think this is Planning Commission's general intent. The third amendment is in response to some of the questions that were brought up by the community and brought up during work session, which was what if the affordability period gets extended for other developments? Then is it stuck here at 40 years? And so this amendment says that 40 years is the minimum affordability for rental, but if we increase our affordability requirements citywide for other programs to 55 years, and I know there's conversation happening right now about extending from 40 years to more years, then in Affordability Unlocked, the affordability requirement will automatically be raised. Then number 4 is the one that I have skipped over, which is cooperative, including cooperative housing. I think Councilmember Poole's amendment will cover that. Number 5 is to allow smaller lots to utilize the program. I had tried to explain this during work session where we wanted to reduce the lot size for multifamily. In conversation with some folks, they said, well, why not reduce it just for development generally, not just for multifamily? And so this amendment reduces minimum lot size to 2,500 square feet. That doesn't fix the need to reduce minimum lot width. So you will see in gray, right under reduction of minimum lot size to 2,500 square feet, that minimum lot width would need to be 25 feet in order to allow that. Number 6 is a change that we posted yesterday, and I've got a chart to hand out to make it really clear. It increases accessible parking requirements not only beyond federal rules, but also beyond the staff draft. So I'm going to hand this out in case anybody needs this chart. But essentially, we intended during our resolution to relieve affordable housing developments of parking requirements, but the question remained about what we would do with accessible parking. And so what this amendment does is that 100% of the accessible spaces that are required under the building code, regardless of how much non-accessible parking you build, we are going to be requiring that number of accessible spaces, period. So, for example, on this chart, a 100-unit complex with a mix of bedroom sizes, currently under current code, has to build 6 accessible spaces. Under Affordability Unlocked, they could build whatever number of non-accessible spaces as they want. Under the staff's recommendation, instead of 6 accessible spaces, they'd have to build 2. But under this amendment, they would still have to build the 6, such that the number of accessible spaces built on site is the same under Affordability Unlocked as under current code. There would always be 6. In gray, I've also added the clarification that some folks had asked for, saying that accessible parking must be provided on site, that is off-street, except insofar as on-street or off-site parking is allowed elsewhere in the existing code. So this basically says we want to relieve affordable housing developments of inaccessible parking requirements, but accessible parking, regardless of whether you build 0 inaccessible parking or 100, you've got to build the accessible parking. Then I have renamed the program from the Affordable Housing Development Bonus Program to Affordability Unlocked Bonus Program, because I think it could get really confusing which bonus program we're talking about if they're all called the same thing. And so number 8, this was a question that came up in the early phases of the resolution. Councilmember Alter brought it up. I think a couple others brought it up of how do we handle mixed use? And so we decided to say a development can only be 25% non-housing, basically allowing for the ground floor to be, say, retail, and then you could have 3 levels of affordable housing on top. But a legal question was raised that when we say non-residential uses can be that 25%, that things like your fitness room or your lobby or your leasing office is considered non-residential. And so then ultimately actually wouldn't allow the whole bottom floor to be mixed use, because then you wouldn't have anywhere to put your fitness room or your leasing office. So the word commercial uses was replaced here to allow for an affordable housing project that is 4 stories and has retail or office on the bottom. And then the very final piece is just a very small cleanup to clarify that for those developments that are going into the type 2 section, that is, that they are going above and beyond, because, for example, they're providing 10% of their housing at less than 30% MFI, the deepest levels of affordability, that they still have to comply with the baseline 50% affordable housing. So if somebody goes into type 2 because they're providing 10% at less than 30%, that does not relieve them of the baseline requirement of it has to be a majority affordable housing project on top of having that deep level of affordability. So that is the base motion as I've laid it out. I'm happy to take any questions or just hear testimony or run this as you like.
Okay. Motion as amended is in front of us. It's the orange sheet with the exception of section 4. We have some folks that have signed up to speak. Do we want to get the public speaking and then come back up to the dais for amendments? Let's go ahead and do that. So let's begin this item. Councilmember Kitchen.
We could do that. It might be interesting for the speakers to hear the variety of amendments if people want to lay them out, or if you don't want to do it that way, that's okay. But
we had a lot of people shaking their head the other way. Let's get through the debate.
Okay, it's just,
let's see if it responds to what
doesn't
people
let
say.
the speakers know what we're.
If you haven't, let's let people air their amendment just real quickly though, because we'll discuss them later. I mean, just to give like the subject area and the solution. Let's do that quickly so that the speakers can hear what's going to be at play. Councilmember Poole, do you want to hit yours really fast?
Sure. You can see Councilmember Poole motions 1 to 4, and as Councilmember Kassar noted, if he had had all of these in advance, he would have put them in the main base motion. But I'm also happy to have my amendment, to author the amendment.
Or one has to do with co-op, or?
That's right. We're calling them sleeping units.
Okay.
Thanks.
All right. Councilmember Togo, do you want to say? Did you have amendments?
I do. One would prohibit the use of, and within multifamily developments, it would prohibit those dwelling units from being used as short-term rentals.
Okay.
One would just add a little bit of would detail some information we would like to come back in that review process after the ordinance is adopted. And then I had asked for staff to take a look at and to provide us with a model of a project that and help us understand how many units could be lost if we allow the same number of units to qualify for 2 different density bonus programs. I'm not seeing that in any of our backup or any of our materials, but I may be missing it. So I do have an amendment related to that, but it would be helpful if there is a response that the staff did for us, if somebody points me to where that might be in our backup.
Okay.
And then I do have a question for staff also. I want them to verify what my understanding is that property owners or developers who want to qualify for this will come in and certify themselves and begin the process by certifying themselves with our staff. And I want to verify that. I think that's the main question I'm hearing from people about how and to whom this will be open to.
Okay. Mr. Flanagan?
Councilmember Togo, just to be clear, you've got a motion sheet 1 and a motion sheet 3, but not a motion sheet 2?
Yes, I have a motion sheet too. I just haven't distributed it yet, and it relates to the topic I just mentioned about.
Just want to make sure I wasn't missing anything.
Yeah,
Just wanna
about
make
the
sure they have
double
everything
about
in
the
there.
double programming, about allowing what the ordinance currently does is allow developments to participate in 2 different density bonus programs and get the entitlements of both with the same universe of affordable units. And I'd ask staff to please take us through a couple mock developments to show us how many units we would be giving up with that provision.
Okay.
I don't see that in the backup, and I do have an amendment to address it, but I wanted to see that data before I move forward with the amendment.
Okay. But the answer is just the sheet 1 and the sheet 3. Councilmember Poole has the sheets 1 through 4. In our universe right now, in terms of people on the dais, making sure that they have everything and I have everything, it's Tovo sheets 1 and 3. It's Councilmember Poole's 1 through 4. And then Councilmember Kitchen, you have a direction A as well as 2 motion sheets?
Yeah, let me speak to those.
Okay.
Just the subject matter.
Just the subject matter.
Yeah, the direction A relates to some direction to staff to work with the disability community, including ADAP, to discuss and develop recommendations related to some of the parking. And I'll explain that more when we take that one up.
Okay.
The second one I have relates to a new Part 6 to clarify the enforcement provisions that would go into the agreement with qualifying development. And then the last one I've put out there for discussion purposes, and it relates to the issue that I raised at the work session. I was thinking that the type 2 development for the increased entitlements, that we would be getting increased levels of affordability. So this one relates to my attempt to address that.
Thank you. All right, let's hear from folks that signed up. Mr. Pena, are you still here? What about Rachel Stone? Why don't you come on down? On deck, Stuart Hirsch. You'll be on deck. And when Ms. Stone walks away, if Brittany Bays, why don't you take that podium in a second? Go ahead.
Hi, I'm Rachel Stone. I'm the Assistant Director of Guadalupe Neighborhood Development Corporation. I just wanted to thank council and staff for their commitment to move forward with adopting this ordinance as soon as we can. It will really help us move the affordable housing bond dollars further and leverage more funds and more affordable housing. I wanted to support the amendment to waive minimum site area requirements. That will also allow us to produce more units. We agree that the affordability period should be aligned with existing city requirements, including the affordable housing bond, and with the idea that as we move forward, if those requirements are extended, that if the bond requirements or other city program terms are extended, that the program should also be extended to have all the outcomes be aligned. And I just wanted to comment on how helpful the parking flexibility would be for groups like Guadalupe Neighborhood Development Corporation. I gave the example last time we talked about this of our project we want to build for seniors, and that without the flexibility in parking, we would be digging down 4 stories, adding ramps. It's about $50,000 per unit, per parking space that we'd be adding. But as of now, if this goes through, we would be able to instead provide more units, and we would be providing the number of accessible units as would be required without the reduced parking. So I'm happy to answer questions about any of our projects, and I just think this is super exciting, and we're really happy to see the support on this, and hope we can get a lot more housing out there. So
That's good. Thank you very much. Is Phyllis Snodgrass there? Okay, and you have time donated from Billy Whipple? Is Billy Whipple here?
He is not. He's
No? Okay, so you'll be 3 minutes, but you're on deck, so there's another person at that podium before you come up. Mr. Hirsch.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the council. This is a dream come true. I support the Planning Commission recommendation as modified by Councilmember Kassar and others, because I believe it will make a major contribution to achieving the 60,000 net affordable housing units over the next 10 years. I've got one amendment change, but I wanted to highlight for you how robust the city's accessibility standards will continue to be when this passes. We have in the housing discrimination chapter of the city code requirements for visitability for those places we fund. They are the most robust in the country, and they do not change under the adoption of this ordinance. In our building code, in our international residential code local amendments, we have some of the most robust visitability standards for all single family and duplex housing, and that does not change here. So anyone who would oppose this based on diminished accessibility standards has been misinformed about what the law is currently and what will change as a result of this ordinance. Now I want to talk to you about a minor defect based on my work over the last 10 years serving people at 18% median family income who generally earn about $10,000 a year, and many of them are disabled or seniors. The current draft would prohibit demolition of a 21-bedroom apartment complex if the apartments are 40 years old and have no significant property maintenance code violations, if they were replaced by 51 efficiency apartments leased to individuals at 50% MFI or 30% MFI, which is below the standard of this code. And the reason it would do that is because this code is drafted in a way that if we demolish what we had and build more, you can do that if you've let your property run down, but you can't do that if you've been properly maintaining it and following the property maintenance standards of the city and the tenant relocation standards of the city and all the other things you're supposed to do under current law and under the proposed ordinance. So please fix that so you don't reward slumlords and discourage people who maintain affordable rental, market rate rental housing at adequate standards. I've given you the description of what would need to change in the ordinance. I think it was your intent to go there, but the actual way that the language is crafted discourages what I have been able to do in demolishing 20 and creating 64 on one site, demolishing 1 and creating 40 on another site. I don't think you want to end that practice. It's a very effective way when you don't have to do site acquisition and you already own the land. And for the small people that I usually work with, they're not going to get tax credits. They're not competing for the state funding the way that the bigger developers in affordable housing do. So please don't take away a tool that's available to us right now. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is Wayne Jeremy here? Why don't you come on? You'll be not next, but just beyond next. Go ahead, please.
Hi, I'm Brittany Bays, Director of Development at Family Elder Care. We've been serving seniors and adults with disabilities in Central Texas for 37 years, and that includes an affordable senior housing development, Lions Gardens, on the east side. So I just want to compliment Council for Affordability Unlocked. It is thoughtful and it is bold, and we echo some of the comments previously heard. The faster we can adopt this ordinance, the faster we can make the best use of our bond money. We also encourage Council to waive the minimum site area requirements and to align the affordability period with current city requirements to 40 years, and we could certainly lift that per Kassar's amendment if that gets extended. And also to maintain flexible eligibility requirements. I didn't hear an amendment today, but family housing is important, but senior housing and housing that addresses homelessness is also very important. And we have more single-headed households than at any other time. And a great increase in our renters who are ages 60 plus. So we want to make sure that we can create single bedroom housing and that that's not disincentivized. And then on the parking, we also want to encourage lifting the parking requirements or minimums. And I think Kassar's amendment again on accessible parking is important, but accessible parking is but one accommodation that seniors and those with disabilities may need. And so having a person-centered approach that allows the developer to be flexible and focus the housing on the needs of those who they are building it for helps us create creative solutions. Trying to get into the 30% MFI housing, the economics are very tough. So we need all of the creative opportunities that we can, and lifting those regulations allows for that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ann Howard, you'll be up at this podium after Ms. Snodgrass. You want to go ahead, sir? Yes, go ahead.
Mayor, council members, thank you so much. We are so excited and thankful to you, Councilmember Kassar, for bringing forward Affordability Unlocked. It is as tough a time as any as we have seen at Austin Habitat for Humanity. Myself, Phyllis Snodgrass, CEO of Austin Habitat for Humanity, resident of District 5, we are finding it, our lines of people trying to get housing are getting longer and longer. Our housing counselors are turning away folks daily, and it's because of the difficulty of obtaining housing. And then once we are able to get land and try to put the housing together, we spend years trying to get the setbacks and the waivers and the parking waivers and the things we need to do just to make the housing happen. And so if we want to make this housing happen faster, if we want to spend this bond money quicker, we need some flexibility. And this is a fabulous tool to help us get the flexibility we need to be building housing innovatively, more creatively, in more places in Austin. I think that's what we all want to see. So thank you. Thank you for your work on this. Councilmember Kassar, I hope this is a great birthday present for you today. Thank you.
Thank you. Is Siobhan Otero here? Ms. Howard.
ECHO, my name is Ann Howard. I'm the executive director of ECHO. ECHO is 100% in support of the sort of set of tools that you have before you today. We ask that as you move forward and are spending the bond funds, that you make sure that those funds are delivering you housing that can be accessible to people who are experiencing homelessness. As you heard earlier, we're working closely with NHCD to make sure that happens. And so as you sort of see the policies for the RHDA funding, you need to be looking for how we're going to accommodate the people coming off the street. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Before Mr. Jeremy speaks, Avais Hazar, go ahead.
All right. Mayor and Council, thank you for having us, and thank you for putting this resolution forward. This really will be an arrow in the quiver of Austin Habitat going forward. We need the flexibility, and I like that phrase, people-centric approach. Really, we're in there with our families. We understand their needs, their lifestyles, and at Austin Habitat, at least, we have the ability of offering multiple product types. So we have single-family homes, we have some townhomes, we're going to have some kind of mid-rise condos going on all at the same time. So the more we can be flexible in what we're allowed to provide and really meet the needs of the clients we serve, it is my job at Habitat as the VP of Client Services to sell those homes. We really do have families that have different needs, so I would just really encourage continuing to allow us, through this resolution, the flexibility to focus on the needs of the people we serve and meet them where they are, provide a product type that is something they want and will use and will need and ultimately will buy because they're using their hard-earned dollars to do it. So thank you for putting it forth, and we look forward to hopefully seeing it pass. Thank you.
Thank you. Michael Gerber. Go ahead.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council members. My name is Siobhan Otero. I'm Program Manager at Housing Works Austin. Executive Director Nora Linares Miller unfortunately couldn't be here today, but sends her regards and gratitude. Housing Works is a mission-driven research, education, and advocacy nonprofit organization that has been working on affordable housing solutions since 2007. Our mission is to research and advocate for all kinds of homes in all parts of town for all kinds of people. Because we believe that everyone should have an opportunity to secure an affordable home. We have worked closely with our advocacy committee, which includes a broad coalition of affordable housing leaders, including nonprofit developers, scholars, and advocates throughout several iterations of the Affordability Unlocked ordinance. We are collectively thrilled that this ordinance presents the opportunity to achieve our missions and positively impact the supply of affordable housing in our communities by decreasing housing costs, allowing more dwelling units, addressing displacement pressures, creating more income-restricted affordable housing units, and providing more mixed income and economic integration through the city and leveraging the $250 million affordable housing dollar bond. We hope that this ordinance maintains its integrity throughout its process, and we believe it is an opportunity to provide solutions to our affordable housing crisis and achieve goals of the Austin Strategic Housing Blueprint. And we also passed around scenarios from the, if Affordability Unlocked were to pass, these are what our nonprofit housing developers would be able to provide. If you have any questions, Aves is here from our advocacy committee.
Great, thank you. Nicole Joslin, why don't you come on down?
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem, council members, for allowing us to speak here. We're very excited to support this. My name is Aves Zahar, and I serve on the executive committee of the Austin Housing Coalition. We're excited to support the Affordability Unlocked ordinance, and we have to say we've been excited to be working with a multitude of partners on getting this where it is today. So we're thankful for all the input that folks have given, and I thank the dais for their support, particularly in ensuring that we pass this in a timely way and at the earliest. It is really important that we allow this to be we pass this as early as possible so we can really leverage our affordable housing dollars, particularly our affordable housing bond, to ensure that we get the units that we need out of this. The other things I'm going to go over, you will have heard before and you might hear after me, but I just want to say them to ensure that they're very important. One is that we request that the minimum site area requirements be waived, as this will allow us to produce more affordable units. We also request that the affordability period is aligned with the programs that we have today, with the understanding that as we move forward, particularly looking at our programs more comprehensively, we will assess those affordability periods. But for now, it makes sense for us to have the affordability periods where they are with the other programs. We also request that the eligibility requirements that are currently there follow the intent of the original resolution. We worked hard on making sure that those eligibility requirements were there to meet the needs of the folks who will be served by this. We also ask that we be allowed to layer additional housing programs and funding on top of Affordability Unlocked, as this will really allow us to get the true benefit of this ordinance and achieve our affordable housing goals. Lastly, I just want to say, the Austin Housing Coalition and housing advocates, we're fully committed to working on accessible housing. And accessible housing goes beyond looking at just the unit itself, but looking really at the transportation, looking at accessible transportation, making sure that folks have what they need. And we're excited that upon passage, we will have the opportunity to work with the community that is working on this and will be affected by this to ensure that we have housing that meets the needs of that meets all accessibility needs. And as housing advocates, we're duty bound to ensure that we meet all reasonable accommodations for all Austinites and to best serve affordable housing residents. And we're committed to this right now, and we hope to continue serving those residents. Again, I thank you all for your leadership, and I hope that if you have any questions, you will please reach out to me. Thank you.
Thank you. Jenna McPhail will be the next person in turn. Yes, sir.
Mayor and Council, good afternoon. My name is Mike Gerber, and I'm the chairman of Housing Works this year, and I'm also, in my day job, the CEO of the Housing Authority of the City of Austin. And I just wanted to echo on behalf of Housing Works our support, strong support for Affordability Unlocked. Affordability Unlocked will help provide some really important tools to help streamline the process to help Austin address our housing crisis. And as we all have talked about over and over, with 1,000 people a week moving to our city, the need for creative solutions that help cut through some of the red tape and challenges of development here in our city This measure can really help to put as much affordable housing on the ground as we can, particularly focusing on low-income seniors and families and persons with disabilities and others with special needs. Others here have made the case more articulately than I will, but I would just simply say this is a bold measure. We really appreciate Councilmember Kazar and others who have helped to co-sponsor this measure's leadership to get it to this day. This is an important step to ensuring that more low-income people in our community have access to housing, and it's with that access to housing that we can provide connections to education and healthcare and job training and so many other things that help Austin to be the diverse community that we want it to be. So thank you for your support, and we hope Council will approve this measure today.
Thank you. I think earlier I called Gus Pena. He signed up twice. Josiah Stevenson. Come on down. Go ahead, please.
Hi, my name is Nicole Jocelyn, and I'm the Executive Director of the Austin Community Design Development Center and the Chair of the Austin Housing Coalition. Y'all have seen me up here previously supporting the resolution, and I'm happy to be here now supporting the ordinance in the current form that Councilmember Kazar has proposed. I want to thank all of the council members and staff for their commitment to maximizing the opportunities for affordable housing across the city, and for working closely with housing providers and advocates to craft a resolution and ordinance that actually works on the ground. We encourage you to keep pushing through these conversations and adopt an effective housing bonus program quickly so we can make the most of our public investments of the housing bond and of the work being done on the ground today. As you discuss the ordinance language today, we'd like to provide a few additional thoughts, many of which you've heard already today. For your consideration, we request that Council waive the minimum site area requirements to allow our housers to produce more affordable units on otherwise unusable sites, align affordability periods with other existing city programs, including the housing bond. We request that we maintain the eligibility requirements that reflect the original intent of the resolution to provide flexibility for housing providers to best serve their population's needs. And we request that you preserve the ability of for our housers to be able to layer this tool with other important tools for them to be able to provide the housing they're providing across the city. And I'd also just like to add that it's so awesome to see so many advocates here today and so many of our allies in support of this resolution. And as you've heard from the testimony today so far and that you'll hear after me, this is really an essential tool for our housers of all kinds to provide housing in all parts of the city. And we need it now in order to meet the needs of our community and to really maximize the housing investments being done today. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Is Jennifer Hicks here? Go ahead, please.
Hi, I'm Jennifer McPhail. I'm a community organizer with Adaptive Texas, and I'm here today to let you know that Adaptive Texas has concerns about the parking component because I think that Councilmember Kazar's recommendation that there be the amount of parking spaces that are required by the law is a start. But we have to recognize that there's such a demand for accessible parking right now that you find non-disabled people taking the placards from their grandma, their auntie, and using it to get a more convenient place to park. That's going to happen in the future, and there's going to be a greater demand if we are to believe the demographics that we hear that statistically speaking, the largest growing population in Austin is population of elderly people. There are elderly people that can't hop on the bus or hop in Uber or hop in a taxi cab very easily because they're on oxygen tanks like my mom was. And when you carry around a portable oxygen tank, you get approximately 2 hours of air to do your daily business with. And if you don't have that air available to you, you're going to struggle to breathe. We're not just talking about a matter of convenience to be able to get as close as you can to the entity you're trying to enter or exit. We're talking about saving a person's life or prolonging a person's life and adding to the quality of their life. It's also about I saw on Monday when I was coming home from work, an elderly lady being assisted by the person she came in the car with and two people from El Jacalito Mexican restaurant on Old Torf. And the waitress was assisting the elderly woman into the restaurant because this woman was so committed to living her daily life, so excited about going out and being like everyone else, that she went through the rain into the restaurant struggling because she had edema. So she went inch by inch, and I watched for several minutes because I wanted to be respectful and give her space so she could get in. But my enchilada-loving doppelganger deserves to be able to be represented by this city and to have her accessibility needs met just as much as I would as a bus user. And we have to recognize that there are going to be enforcement issues if you take away the inaccessible parking, that people are not going to have a place to park their car to be able to unload my wheelchair in an Uber. That's what we do right now. I get to side street parking, which means, that we park on the side of the road so that the Uber can load and unload me. And what happens a lot of times is I have to unload and load in oncoming traffic. And I don't know if you've ever seen a person in a wheelchair get out of an Uber, but you have to back up backwards. And you have to hope that the Uber driver is paying attention to their well-being and your well-being, because I don't have eyes in the back of my head. So the more accessible parking that there is and the more enforcement that there is of those accessible parking regulations, the better. Thank you.
And Mayor, I'd like to thank Ms. McPhail for coming out and for speaking with us, and I promise we'll keep working with you and talking to you to make things better. I learn every time we get a chance to talk, so thank you.
Thank you, and happy birthday.
Thank you.
Is Brian Neal here? You'll be up next. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. My name is Josiah Stevenson, speaking for myself today. I just want to stress the urgency of the problems that this is trying to address in our housing crisis, our affordable housing crisis in general. There are a lot of, we need a lot of tools to address that, and we passed one of them this past November, and we're working on another one of them now. And this ordinance would be a tool that would complement both of those. It's extremely important for amplifying the effect of our bond housing dollars in particular, as you've heard from several people today who are working on projects that are in the pipeline or planning other projects that could benefit from this, that could use the same number of dollars to serve more people once this passes. And so that's really important. I'm really glad that this is up today, and urge you to approve it. Also want to emphasize the lot size and lot width amendment that's up, and encourage you to pass that as well, and also to include co-ops, because they're a very important form of affordable housing in the city. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Hicks. I'm with True Casa Consulting. I'm excited to be here on what I hope is going to be a momentous day. I've dedicated my entire career to the development of mission-based affordable housing, and so I'm here today not only as part of my career, but as an affordable housing advocate and as an Austinite. I think, right now what's just so important is to not hold this up, to keep it moving. There are projects in the pipeline right now that could benefit from Affordability Unlocked. I think Council has done an amazing job of the the intentionality of the ordinance as it reads now. And I want to just piggyback on the other advocates that spoke. I'm in favor of the amendments that have been proposed with the site requirements mimicking the affordability requirements of the city. And if those increase, then this would too. I just want to say that the majority of these developments are so, layering on so many different layers of funding, and they're very complex, and they all come up with their own requirements. And so I think that there's a lot of things that can be woven in, but there's already other requirements that are doing that. So we just want to, take a little pause before we add on too many things. So, I just want to say thank you, and I'm just excited to get started. So I'm here for any questions too.
Mayor, I do have a question.
Yes, go ahead. Councilor Kassar.
Ms. Hicks, thanks for your testimony. Thank you for helping us put this together in the first place. I remember the first conversation we had about it, and thanks for your career in this work. We have a good handful of amendments on the table, but I did want to ask you about one. I'm generally been a proponent about looking at right of first refusal as a possibility in our rental housing, but my understanding is that it's not currently a requirement that we set for city dollars, that we currently don't always do that. And there is an amendment that has been passed out by one of my colleagues to grant the city a right of first refusal for all rental developments that participate in this program. Can you lay out for us what the good of that might be, or where you might have clients or people you've worked with that have concerns? This would be a new requirement that we don't currently require for rental housing. And so since you have a lot of expertise, I would love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, and I know there's some other experts in the room. I saw Mr. Gerber's back there. But I think that, I believe all the affordable housing developers, that would absolutely be an intent, and would be, a perfect, in a perfect world, that would be great for the city of Austin, and to have that layered in. I would say, a good chunk of these projects are going to be layered with low-income housing tax credits, and that program has its own right of first refusal process. And that becomes how things get complex, because there's people that understand those complexities far more than I can, but that involves investors and people leaving partnerships and, giving the right of first refusal to nonprofits first. And so it's just a complexity that I think will take some time. I don't think it's something that we couldn't get to. But I think it would take time to iron that out. So,
thank you. Yeah, and I've always found working through this that different pieces get more complicated the more you look into them. I haven't talked to folks who have their rental housing development, for example, on a donor's land or on a philanthropic partner's land, and how that might work. And so since it isn't a requirement, I wanted to get a sense of where we were at on that process.
There's a lot of different flavors, and so just figuring out how those would all overlap, and it would just take some time.
Councilmember Kitchen.
Yes, and Councilmember Kassar, I think you overstated what I have in this amendment. It's not a requirement. I'll read it. It says, to the extent feasible for rental developments. So I really, this is very helpful for me to understand. And it sounds like it might be something that we could get to, perhaps, in the future. And that's all this is suggesting. So, to the extent feasible. So, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Go ahead, sir.
Hello, my name is Ryan Nill. I've lived in housing cooperatives for about 10 years now. Housing co-ops are a form of democratically managed housing, democratically managed by its tenants. And we found in Austin that you can find a co-op for about 50 to 70% of market housing in that neighborhood. So I know in the work session, Councilmembers Kassar and Poole brought some amendments, and I want to thank you all for bringing those and supporting cooperatives. I think that the amendments are aimed at the kind of group-style housing, and I want to just point out that there are other co-ops that also have difficulties. I think the amendments you got are great, but just want to point out an additional kind of challenge And I don't think we have to fix it today and put this resolution. I just want to put it on y'all's radar that there are types of co-ops where a corporation owns the property, that is a corporate co-op owns it, and then people own stakes in the business. So there can kind of be confusion about like where the ownership lies. And so these kind of like limited equity, limited ownership type arrangements. And I think the confusion comes in that like we have this dichotomy of like renting versus owning. And I think co-ops will often kind of fit in between these two extremes in unique ways that can cause challenge if you assume that everything is either owned renting or home ownership. So I just want to throw that out there for y'all's consideration and for something to work on in the future, and to just say that I think this resolution is going to do well and it's going to help out Austinites, and I hope y'all pass it today. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else signed up that I didn't call on to speak? That gets us back up to the dais. We have a motion in front of us. It's the orange sheets without item number 4. Councilmember Poole, you want to bring in your amendments? You said you thought that they were
Sure.
easy.
So you'll see on pool motions 1 to 4, number 1, we're amending the definition section to include sleeping unit to mean a bedroom in a structure that serves as a dwelling unit for 7 or more unrelated individuals who share amenities such as a kitchen, bathrooms, or living areas. The second one amends subsection 25.1.722, which is eligibility, to add item A1C, 1 or more structures that serve as a dwelling unit for 7 or more unrelated individuals who share amenities such as a kitchen, bathrooms, or living areas. And those two were adopted by Councilmember Kassar, and then we were also working with law on 2 additional items, numbers 3 and 4.
Okay, let me check on the first 2. Does anybody have any objection to the first 2 being included? Hearing none, those 2 are included.
And then the first one, number 3, is eligibility, and it's amending section 25.1.722C2 and 3. And this, according to our attorneys in the law department, we must have this language. It talks about, it goes back to referring to sleeping units, and you'll see those 2 words inserted 4 times in 2, A and B, and then in 3, again, sleeping units. And I'll wait to see.
Is there an objection to these amendments being included?
Great.
Hearing none.
And then
These are the 2.
And we're just putting or sleeping units in throughout the item, throughout the code to reflect that usage up at the top, and the last one is in affordability requirements.
Anybody have an
Again,
objection to Fourth
inserted
Amendment being
twice.
included? Anybody have an objection? Then I can't tell, Councilmember Alter, if you're raising your hand or not.
This language is new to me, and so I'm trying to digest it, and I understand the difference between cooperatives and dorms, but I'm not sure that I'm fully understanding the implications of this between the difference, and I want to allow cooperatives, but I don't want to allow stealth dorms to be propping up as I understand them, and I'm just trying to understand. It's within an affordable housing project and a certified. I'd like to understand the guardrails here. I understand the intention and I support the intention. I just want to make sure that what we're putting in here throughout is making sense from that.
Right, and I think it would be useful to have Trish Link. Is she here? Here she is. She can come up and speak to that, but the certification piece that you mentioned is, those are the guardrails.
Councilmember Tovo.
Yeah, and I think that this is maybe what Councilmember Poole asked you to speak to. I think one of the confusions that I had and that others had in reading through this ordinance is that the provision the provision indicating that they need to be participating in a government certified program is in 25.1.723, and I guess it would help me, and I don't know if this would answer Councilmember Alter's question. Can you please confirm that any project participating in any one of the programs described in this ordinance must be participating in a government-operated affordable housing program?
Patricia Link, Assistant City Attorney. The
affordable housing, Affordability Unlocked does not require a participation in a government program for subsidies. However, before anyone can develop under this program, they must receive a certification from the department, NHCD, Neighborhood Housing Community Development, that shows, one, that the proposed development will comply with the eligibility requirements, and two, they're going to have to execute an agreement related to this affordability. So the building official or whoever's going to review the site plan would not be able to do that until that certification is in hand.
That is a little bit different. I don't want to hijack somebody else's questions. I have some more questions about that point and the way in which 20190509council fits.
Yes.
When you restated it, you said that could be one of the things that the staff, as I'm remembering it, this is obviously not your language because I'm doing it by memory, but what I heard you say was something like the staff could take it into consideration as they craft the regulations, and I would like a more firm direction. So obviously it's very, I mean, we don't have ordinance language, and I don't know if it's even appropriate to pass direction to staff to craft language to put in an ordinance if we haven't seen it. I agree with you.
Yeah, I mean,
but I'm running out of options here. If we have to, if there's an interest in passing it on 3 readings, and we're trying to come up with a fix, and there's not, it sounds like maybe much of an interest in going back to an executive session where we could ask staff to help us craft this language.
I'd be fine with that too. I mean, I'm fine. Stop if you want to withdraw that amendment. Let's not close things down yet. Let's handle the other amendments we have. People maybe could be thinking about that, or we could take a break right now and go back into executive session on this issue. I'm fine with any of those things. And my intent was not to make it a consideration for staff, but to figure out how to do that, because I think our intent is the same. And I don't know if it's an affordability issue or a definitional issue, but I'm not sure we're going to be able to figure that out on the dais.
Yeah, I think we need some assistance.
Okay, so you have an amendment in front of us right now, kind of, because it doesn't quite have language to it, so I'm not exactly sure what to do with it.
Maybe Councilmember Alter has a suggestion.
So I think we all agree on what we're trying to achieve. It's a question of whether it achieves it with the language. So what I'm wondering is if we could add to one of these in the appropriate place, and it is a cooperative, and then provide direction to staff to define cooperative in a rules process, or to come back with us with an amendment that defines cooperative in future so that we don't have to hold it hostage, but I'm not sure exactly which one we would do that.
Let's do this. Let's take a break right now. Let's go back into executive session, because the question of adding the words cooperative seemed to be what Ann was reacting to a second ago. That's what I heard that to be. So let's just go back. We can hear what that is, and maybe that'll give us some clarity.